And welcome back to another episode of Life Changing Challengers. Everybody, you are going to be totally amazed today. And this is going to be an episode that you probably have never even thought that I would bring to you. So I have with me Tim Thomas. He is an ex-member of the Australian Special Forces. So when you want to talk about rough, tough, and hard to bluff, this is the guy, Tim Thomas. And he has a platform called Breathwork in Bed that we're going to get deep into a little bit later, and the absolute advantages to breathwork itself, and then his approach to it, which is called Breathwork in Bed, as I've already stated. So let's bring him in. Tim, how you doing today?
It is so good to be here. Good energy being sent from down under.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. Right now, for me, it's May 20th. For you, it's May 21st.
That's right. I'm going to send you the lotto numbers.
Perfect. Like that. I would really like that. I like talking to the future. It's cool. So anyway, Tim, hey, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Like what was the complement of your family? Where'd you grow up? And what was it like to be Tim as a kid?
Okay, so I grew up in a very remote, isolated and insulated area of Australia. And it was back in the 70s and 80s. I'm over 50 right now. And it's very hard to put into words how different the culture was back then. So I've seen some of your movies where, the Mississippi South, where there's lots of racial divide. That's kind of what it was like. And my father worked in the church in the Aboriginal community. So we were sort of stuck in these two strange worlds. One where, a lot of the sort of white people didn't like us, and the Aboriginals, they didn't dislike us, but they didn't trust us. But that all changed at about the 3 or 4 year mark of being there, where they realized, Dad's a good dude, And then when you get accepted into that culture, there's no half measures. Like, you're part of them forever. Right. So I still go back as a 50-year-old and go hunting with these guys. I'm going back there next month, And so growing up, I ate most everything that crawled or ran on the ground. So a lot of, lizards, snakes, grubs, all that sort of stuff. Grew up very sort of conservative Christian. My father worked in the church. So that was an interesting way to grow up. As a young person, it was this really simple but comforting world that you're in. But then, as you grow out of, not grow out of the connection to the divine, but I grew out of someone else's concept of what it should look like. I still have a very deep connection to the divine. In fact, probably 40 minutes ago, I was on my roof doing breath work to the sunrise. And that was my morning sort of ritual of gratitude and praise. And that space has been put in me from when I was a child, where very physical. I feel blessed to be one of the last generations to grow up without technology. So we didn't have phones. We learned how to be bored. And out of that boredom came all this fantastic creativity, So
It just
I just, and when, the thing is, when I was on my roof this morning, I sent out, I felt so overwhelmed with this good energy. I sent out a bunch of just text, really simple text, like "Good morning, mate," and or a little video message, and then just the energy that comes back, because people are like, "Oh, this feels so good to have someone that actually thought of me this morning," and so being blessed to have no tech growing up and being very connected to my body, that set me up for the rest of my life. Now, within that space, there was a disconnect from my mind to my hand, I would say. So I was dyslexic, but back in the 70s, the technical term for dyslexia was "you're stupid." Okay. And you tell a kid that enough, he starts believing it. So I'm like, okay, the sky's blue, my name's Tim, and I'm stupid. Well, I might as well have some fun, So I was that kid that always created mischief, and back in then you could hit kids, so I was always getting hit, but I was the type of kid that could get hit and not take it personally. My brother, if you sort of gave him a tap, he would freak out, so time and a place. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I started, and because this belief system of, Tim's stupid, that was in the background and that was kind of running the show, right? And I didn't know it. So all my decisions was based on, oh, Tim, you're stupid. You can only get, if you try your hardest, you'll only get 11 out of 20. That was what my
Your conditioning.
school was telling me. I kind of, I kind of see school like you get 1,000 kids, you throw 1,000 blankets over them, you cut out 1,000 holes, and if they don't measure up inside those holes, then you're not just not good at that area, you're no good everywhere. And that's what I took on from schooling. I felt like I was no good anywhere. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I started doing these IQ tests, and I'm getting pretty good scores. Like if I wanted to, I could join Mensa, right? It was over 135. But and it's funny just hearing those words coming out of my mouth, but it was so shocking to me. The words like, maybe I'm not as stupid as everyone thinks or says that I am, but being dyslexic, Brad, my pattern recognition is in the top percentile. And the pattern I kept on seeing was that energy is like money in the way that how you invest it is how you get it back. And everyone's got a unique energy signature and a unique thing that they invest into that they get a big return from. Okay. Because someone might look at your spectacular career and go, oh, wow, look at all the endurance work he's done. Okay. But what they probably didn't see is, yes, those endurance events cost him $1,000 worth of energy, but it gave him back 10 million. Would I be right in saying that?
Agreed. No. Coming across the finish line after months and months of training is depleting energy, then to get it back. Just the accomplishment itself, to sit there and go, I did that. And what's interesting, it keeps giving back. So I continue to do these endurance events. And what I tell my clients, they're like, oh my God, I'm nervous about doing the race and blah, blah. And I'm like, good, keep that. Because the minute that you lose it, it's time to hang it up. After 40 marathons and 5 full Ironmans and 30 70.3s, I still get nervous. And I have a room, my gym has got my medals and stuff in there. And how I get rid of my nerves is not really get rid of them, but it calms me down is to go in there and go, look, how many times you've already done this. You can do it again. We just want to do it a little bit better. So everybody else, they tell me, oh, no. I put them in a box and I put them away. I'm like, no. They're over there. And they're in a room that nobody goes in. It's just me. It's my meditation, my gym, my everything room.
Yeah.
And I go in there, and when I'm nervous about something, even something that's not physical, if I'm going to work and I've got a big presentation or something, I just got to go in there and I go, look, you've done 5 Ironmans. You've done so many 70.3s. You've covered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. Why can't you get up and stand in front of, some CEOs and give a presentation? There's no reason for it. And it keeps giving back. And that's basically what I wanted to get out from this big giant blabbering I just did.
I want to add momentum to that blabbering, as you say, to even make that more powerful. So this is the thing that plagued me for years. Like, I know I can do this, so why the hell am I so nervous? And then my pattern recognition kicked in. Okay. Think of your mind like a garden, whatever your water grows. Okay. And there's parts of my mind that is disempowered. Okay. It knows about its own existence. If I take steps to become truly powerful, it gets kicked out. So think of it like before you go to the gym, there's a part of you saying, no, I don't want to do it. Let's do this later. That's the disempowered parts of us knowing that you're about to become powerful. And it's aware that it's about to get kicked out. So it screams the absolute loudest when it's about to get kicked out. So let's reinterpret those nerves as the clearest indication of something super powerful is about to happen.
Yeah.
Because that's like an enemy telling you, like, this is the part of us that wants to be disempowered. And while we're in this form, there'll be parts of us that are disempowered. Okay. There's parts of us opposing becoming powerful. And if you can reinterpret those signals, like, oh, don't do this, like, oh, if my enemy told me to go south, I'm going north. So you see the switch up? That is the clearest indication that I'm about to do something that's going to become super powerful and kick out those things that were there, but I didn't know. Luckily, you make a powerful choice to do a marathon and all those disempowered parts of you get pushed to the surface. They were always there. They were always there. But when you choose to do something powerful, all those disempowered parts go, oh, hang on. No, we don't want you doing that. So you get a chance to, it's not just more energy from doing the action of whatever it is you're doing. It's the energy that you're not wasting on the disempowered parts of you, if that makes sense.
No, it makes absolute sense. And it's interesting because those disempowered parts is the monkey in your brain that's being the control. That is your fight or flight mechanism. It's your brain trying to protect you. One of my favorite authors, podcaster, influencer, whatever you want to call it, David Goggins, right? The one guy that has actually overpowered his own brain to bring his body to the absolute edge. And that's what he talks about. He's got the difference between Goggins and David. David controls. He's the guy that keeps everything in check and is the fight or flight and will more times be flight than fight. Goggins is the one that strips it away and says, no, 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 no. We're going to disempower all that using your terms. That we're going to disempower them and we're just going to keep going. So that's exactly it. I use that same terminology. I just call it the monkey. Are you going to let the monkey win or are you going to win? But it's interesting. But I love the pack. But I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal it. I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to learn it.
Oh, he's great. Look, we're increasing our mission. Yeah, some game. So please use it.
But I think I'm using both. I'm be like, hey, are you going to empower the monkey or are you going to empower your heart?
Well, that monkey does not want you to connect to your heart, because when you connect to your heart, that's gone. And it knows it's been sucking out your energy and it doesn't want to be kicked out.
Exactly. So let's get back to you a little bit. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, for those of you actually watching it, you'll see Tim. Tim's freaking buff, man. He's huge. When you think of special forces, you look in the dictionary, that's Tim's picture right there. So if you're listening, that's what he looks like. Now you know. Tell me about, is it high school in Australia?
Yeah, we have high school.
So it's called high school. Yeah. So you said you weren't a great student, but did you, were you in any sports?
Oh, no. This is what I noticed. Even though I was like academically challenged, I noticed that when I applied myself physically, I just felt smarter and more confident. So I literally had to ignore what everyone else said and go, I'm just going to do the things that make me feel good, like this breadcrumb trail. That felt good, more please. That felt good, more please. Mm-hmm. And now the data's out. So when I'm working with high school students now, I will explain to them what was explained to me, that if you just do 20 minutes of exercise in the morning, you create a bunch of glucose, oxygen, and something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, that cross your blood-brain barrier, and you become 25% more productive throughout the day. And again, with high school students, I'm like, what would you use that extra 25% to do? You could use it to get better grades. You could use it to get a better outcome, problem that you are trying to resolve. This is the power we get when we look inside, without sounding corny. I mean, the keys are on the inside. Yeah. You lose a key inside the house, and if you're running around outside your house trying to find it, you're never going to find it. We're looking in the wrong place. So that's what I was unconsciously doing. And I noticed that I would lose power every time I started listening to someone else and their well-intentioned advice, saying, oh, this really works for me. You should do this. I lost so many years because if someone says, no, you're wrong, Tim, I would listen to them and believe them. And I go, oh, maybe I've got to do it like this. And it was like a fish trying to learn how to climb a tree. It was through the physical path that all of a sudden stuff started rebuilding. And then the more energy I had, I noticed the more options I had,
So it's interesting that you were talking about that. I coach cross country, and because I live in Florida, I live in Tampa. Cross country is fall, which obviously crosses through some, we start with summer going to fall, and it gets very hot here. So I hold all of my practices in the morning. And isn't it interesting that all my kids are honor roll kids, like top of the line? They call it the nerd squad, but they all get good grades. And even some of the ones that aren't necessarily, there's like 4 different honor rolls in the school that I coach at. And I've got a lot of them that are in the top 2 honor rolls. But even the ones that were not in the lowest honor roll, which is the 3.5 and above, they got there. It's interesting. I never thought of it that because they were getting that exercise in the morning and they were actually crossing that blood-brain barrier, and increasing their energy level, that they might be getting good grades because they're working out in the morning versus all the other sports that are working out in the afternoon, and they're
Yeah.
expending their energy that they could be doing when they're doing their homework.
Hey, you're absolutely right. See, your kids, everybody, and this is what when I'm working with high school students, I say the same thing. Your mind's like a garden, and whatever you water will grow. Okay. And if you're watering that brain, you can have the same brain, same IQ levels. Okay. So imagine just two people, same IQ levels. One is watering their brain, nourishing it, creating good soil. And the other one, just as intelligent, but they're not watering the seeds in their mind. They're not creating the good soil. These things only get unlocked at the right energetic level. And this is something that's not taught by academia.
Right. That's interesting too, because even me, I always work out in the morning. Matter of fact, I have problems working out in the evening. It's got to be something special for me to work out in the evening, but I get more done. And I never thought that that was the reason why I would feel better mentally. Like I always felt better physically. I felt like charged up, ready to go, but I never made the connection that I actually felt better mentally and I felt more focused. Till just now, you talked to me about this the crossing the blood-brain barrier and bringing that energy level up. That's super interesting. However, I didn't get an answer to the question. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask the question again now, because you said that you want to remain physical. Are you telling me that you did your 20 minutes of exercise and that's what you did for high school? Or are you telling me that you did not do any extra sports or anything while you were in extracurricular activities?
So yes, I was very physically active. I was on all the major sporting teams. We have Australian rules football here. So think, physical like gridiron, but there's no padding. It's just pretty much what I'm wearing right now, just a jersey and you're running around the place. I liked boxing.
Cricket.
But then at the end of year 12, everyone's saying, oh, you've got to fill out all this paperwork and do more study if you ever want a job. And even though everything else was saying you're going to be a complete failure if you don't do more study, you'll never get a job, you'll never be employed. At the deepest part of me, I'm like, you know what? F this. I've had enough of their crap. I've just got to go do my thing, whatever that is. And I kind of just went to a very faraway place called the Northern Territory where nobody knew me. And I worked as you'd call it a cowboy, but in Australia, we call it a ringer or a jackaroo. And I just got into this work and started, I hate to use the term finding myself, but I just knew what I didn't want. And what I didn't want was more stuff that made me feel frustrated and unsatisfied. And that's what the academic space was doing for me. And I just noticed the more I lent into my physical body, the more life opened up to me. And it was literally a 24-hour thing. Like one day life could be, no energy, no options. The next day, lots of energy, lots of options. And it took me a while to see the connection between how the universe changed when this energetic level was raised. And within that conversation, I really encourage people to find out your unique energy signature, because that's what my journey has been, finding out my unique energy signature. When you're made with a unique energy signature. And what that looks like in real life is that everyone's got something that it might take a bit of energy to invest, into, but that unique thing to you gives you so much back. Like some people can play guitar, $100 worth of energy into that, they get $1,000 back. That's their energy signature. Me, I could never do that, but doesn't stop me enjoying the fruits of the other person's labor. Brad, when you invest in your energy to, come across that finishing line, you said, I feel so good. I would change that to we feel so good. Because I know you and I know, and you've achieved that. So I get to win as well. And that's when it gets super, super cool. Cause it's not just me, on my own, working out, going for a run. Every single step I take, everyone in my life is getting better and stronger and better and stronger. If all I had to do to get everything I wanted is to create a more energetic state, to serve the people I love better and to have them having a better day, is just take another step, then all of a sudden you start becoming super powerful because you start seeing the connection between it all.
That's profound. I never thought about it that way, because then, well, that's super interesting, because you and we both work with other people. Not only do I coach cross country for high school, I coach track and field, and I have a private practice where I coach adults into, endurance sports. Then we give energy, they give energy, and then they come across the finish line. And I've always said, well, I haven't always said, when I first started coaching, I always said that coaching someone and watching them come across the finish line is only second to me doing it myself. And that morphed into saying that, no, actually watching them come across the finish line is much more rewarding than me coming across myself. So I put energy into them. They put energy into themselves, which then gives energy to the rest of their peers back to me. By far, I get much more rewarded back when they complete something. So there's a crossing of all these different energy signatures, which I would argue, or maybe not argue, I would say it's kind of like we all streaming our signatures together, right? I write Brad minus, you immediately pick up with Tim, Thomas, our thing, blah, blah, blah. And you give this big, giant, long signature that can double back on itself and repeat that energy signal, allowing for a repetitive, infinite amount of energy to bring into the world.
Well, you're blessed, Brad. You're so blessed because you get to see, when you're coaching somebody, the progress they've made, the energy you've invested, and you can see it, right? But this is what faith is to me. Faith isn't knowing whether God exists or not, but my average everyday life is having a powerful and permanent impact on those around me. Most of the time, we don't get to see the impacts of our lives onto others. So I had a near-death experience where it was a classic one, life flashing before my eyes. The whole thing, right? It was a shark attack, but the point of the story is that afterwards, someone asked me, do you think that experience why the shark was biting you was a spiritual experience? And I said, no, because it was unique in the way that I had that near-death, everything flashing before my eyes, like all the events all at once. But it was just my life from my perspective, from my own eyes. Just as I'd seen it, there was nothing new in that experience. If that was a truly spiritual experience, Brad, I wouldn't just see my own actions. I would see how that action impacted others and then others. Okay. You're blessed because you've got a job that you can pour energy into somebody and see how that impacts others. What you don't see is how that empowered person then impacts others beyond our timeline. Maybe some of the good stuff we're experiencing now is energy paid forward to people that have been before us. My faith, Brad, is when I get to the other side, Divine Spirit's going to say, hey, Tim, here's your life as you saw it from your own eyes. Here's your life as you didn't see it. All the stuff happening from your events impacting others. This is what faith is, knowing that what we do has this incredible effect. And our guiding compass for the most impact is the things that truly are aligned with our own unique energy signature. Endurance, athlete or playing guitar, whatever it is, when you get in touch with a source, it's very natural to be generous when we're in touch with the source because we're giving of our abundance. Okay, for many years, I was giving of myself. I wasn't giving of my abundance. I was still very effective in what I did, but what nobody knew behind closed doors is every 6 or 7 weeks, I'd have to write myself off for about 3 days with alcohol because I was giving of myself. I wasn't giving of my abundance. Okay, so before I got on here and interacted with you, I was connecting to my energy signature, sunrise, breath work, energizing my physical body, so that when I interact with somebody, I can be naturally generous and it's not forced. And also knowing that, let's say you said, Tim, get stuffed and never want to see you again. Okay. That's okay because I'm in touch with something so much more powerful than what can be taken. And the problem most people get into, Brad, is they get taken from they class it as pain, and they say, I never want to do that again. And then our mind goes, okay, let's live a life that we never get hurt again.
Right.
And that's a bit like saying, okay, I've lost, someone took 50 cents. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to get that 50 cents back. And forgetting the whole time that we can make another $1 million the next day. So my vision for my clients is to become energetic millionaires.
Like it.
Because, you've got a shares portfolio and you've got things that are returning. Use your energy like a shares portfolio. There's something that you do that gives you a massive return. And if you had something that you put $10 in, you got $100 back, like that just makes sense, right? Let's do that more. Push that button more. Okay. And this is what we're here to figure out. This is what our free will is. Some people like yourself, they're blessed to figure out their energetic signature and master it. Endurance stuff. And then there comes a point of mastery where generosity becomes quite natural. When you are connecting to the source, life occurs very differently because we all get taken from, and you can get stuck there. You can block yourself off from the source in the best intentions, but this is where, doing the work on yourself is you removing those blockages, giving up that 50 cents so you can then become that energetic millionaire.
Quoting a mutual acquaintance of ours. I love that. So anyway, no, that is absolutely fantastic. But again, I got to keep reeling us back here because I want to know.
Sorry, I ended it.
No, I think this is what we want, right? This is what what life-changing challenges is all about, is giving these nuggets to people that will help them increase their potential. And all that stuff is great information. But I mean, you have given so much of yourself and received so much back that we've got to know more so we can provide people with more, I don't want to say content, but give them more information. So, all right, I want to know, so you were a ringer or a cowboy in my case, right? All of you that have watched Yellowstone, you know what that is. But at some point you decided to go into the Australian. Was it Army that went to Special Forces, or was it just Special Forces, or is it the Royal Army?
The unique thing about my service, the first time in Australia, they trialled a scheme because essentially the government knew war was coming, and the most economical way to do that was with Special Forces. They had a budget, but they didn't have bums in seats. So they started this scheme called the DRSF scheme. Military loves their acronyms. Direct recruiting into Special Forces, DRSF. And so they took a bunch of civilians, screened the crap out of them, physical testing, mental testing, aptitude testing, psychological testing. And then I was told that between 5,000 and 10,000 people applied. And of that, 70 were taken up on the initial intake. I was fortunate enough to get in on the initial intake. And at 30, I was the oldest. That was the oldest allowable age to get in. Everyone was saying, Tim, you're too old. But then I'm like, and this is my dyslexia kicked in. I'm like, okay, what's the pattern here? The pattern, the thing that's obvious, is this is the first time I'd aged. Guess what? I'd never actually aged before. So shouldn't it be me saying what I can and can't do at this particular age? So with a dusting of FU in my attitude, I took it on, and there was plenty of guys younger, fitter, faster, stronger than me. But I think there was something about growing up in the 70s and, getting beaten up every day at school it was just Tuesday, nothing personal. I might beat them up tomorrow, but, it's just what happens, right? So I was tactilely, I was quite tough. And I was a professional fighter before I joined the military. So this was back in the 90s where it was not particularly legal in Australia. It was kind of held in these underground biker bars, but we were paid and it wasn't much, but it was also in pubs where you could smoke back then.
Right.
Okay. So you're walking up to the ring, coughing up half a lung. So that was kind of the origin story that got me into the SF, because I'd reached 30 and I was wanting to start a family, and I had all these physical abilities that the mainstream world didn't see as a skills asset, not something you could put on your resume. But Special Forces was another matter altogether.
Oh, yeah.
So of the 70 that applied, the Army was highly resistant to this scheme, Brad. In fact, they frickin' hated us, and they made no didn't hide it because up until that point, Brad, you had to spend 2 years in a regular infantry battalion before you could even apply. So here we are coming off the street. We were considered queue jumping civilians. Okay. And they're two words that are very dirty words in the military, as you probably know, right? He's a goddamn queue jumper. He jumped the queue 2 years ago. Don't have to talk to that guy. So the advantage I had was that I was a free diver. Okay. And as much as these guys who are younger, fitter, faster, stronger than me, I understood that the body has a ranking structure with blood. And there's parts of your body that's more important than other parts. Like your brain pulls rank on pretty much everything. So if your brain doesn't get enough blood, it'll send a signal to the rest of your body going, hey, I'm more important than the rest of you guys. Now, what I knew and what gave me the competitive advantage was that your lungs are really important. And it amazes me how many professional athletes don't condition their lungs. It's getting more popular these days, but still, what I knew was that if the lungs get fatigued, they're not like your brain. This is a massive muscle group, and that can take up to 1/3 of your total blood volume. Okay, so if you've got, I'm just say 9 liters of blood in your body, your lungs get fatigued, then that's 1/3. You've only got 6 liters left for your arms and legs. I noticed the younger guys, there'd come a point where you could hear them going, and you knew it was close to the end, but they called me Old Man Tomo. I didn't like the name, but that's what they called me. I never stopped because I was always working long breaths, and my blood were in my arms and legs. I wasn't as strong as those guys, but my blood was where it was supposed to be. It wasn't being wasted in a fatigued diaphragm.
I'm sorry, because we call that endurance in my language. No, that's and it definitely, and I could see where you free diving definitely prepared you for that. And it's the same thing. You've got people like in our sport, there's 4 different lengths, major lengths. You've got a sprint triathlon, Olympic triathlon, a half Ironman or 70.3, and then a full, right? There's a sprint, which is 400 meters swim, 10-mile bike, which is 16 kilometers, and then a 5K. People love that distance. And then there's the Olympic 1,500-meter swim, 25-mile bike, 10K run.
Measure it in Ks, not miles.
Sometimes you're talking about it's a global sport. So
yeah, no, yeah.
If I go north to Canada, it's all in.
So the world doesn't rotate around America?
Yeah. It goes into Ks. And, if we go southern, it goes into Ks. If we go to the east, it goes into Ks. We're the only ones. But yeah, so those people understand that, right? They understand where their blood can go at that point. It's the same thing when I train people that are going the long distance, whether it be marathons, ultra marathons, is that blood distribution, right? You have a certain blood distribution for your breath work. You've got a certain distribution for arms when you're swimming, certain for your legs. But when you get into the longer stuff and you actually have to replenish nutrition, what we call fuel, you've got to now take into effect the distribution that has to go to your digestive system to digest those calories. So now you've got to know how your energy works in that way as well, so that you're not eating too much or too little, that you're not getting enough nutrition, too much too fast, where now all of a sudden the blood has to go to your digestive system. The biggest thing, a lot of endurance sports, is people that have GI issues. And most of the time, it's because they're either putting in too much or not putting in enough. And that's a very delicate balance. And I think it's just the same way with what you were talking about. You have learned to control the blood going into your lungs by technique. And those guys that walked into that didn't. So same thing for here. Like you said, all those guys that were in the Army, and it's 2 years before they can even jump into to the Q course, which we call it the same thing. It's the Q course, because in order for them to go to the Q course, they've already got to go to airborne and air assault school. So by the time they get past basic, get into their unit, get a slot into airborne, then get a slot into air assault, it's 2 years. By the time that they can go to the Q course and even just qualify to go to special forces or to Rangers. Same thing with, now there is a program in our naval where they can go, depending on how well they do in their basic course, they can go to buds, or they can go to what we would call the Q course. They're like indoctrination course, the course that tells them, that gives them the ability to go to buds, basic underwater demolition school. So anyway, that's where how that goes. But you were able to go into this special thing where because we had a war coming. And by the way, I'm Gen X too, so I'm right there with you. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, so yeah, so I'm right there with you. And all that stuff. I grew up without technology, just like you did. I was working in such an area, going through school, that I needed a cell phone, and it was a big bag phone that you like would put around your thing, and then it would pick it up. It looked like a regular phone. It didn't look like it was anything else. I remember, not having technology, but you're absolutely right. Pen to paper, typewriters, carbon paper in order to copy stuff. Yeah. So yes, it definitely lent more to creativity as well. So how was actual training? So you went to the Q course, then you actually go into Special Forces training. Is that correct?
So you do your, what we call boot camp basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You do your infantry stuff. Then there was an 8 to 12 week advanced infantry course, basically just to weed out anyone that wasn't supposed to be there. And then you get to do selection, which is in Australia about 29 days of hell. And then if you get one insertion course after that, whether it's airborne, amphibious, whatever, then you get what's called beret qualified. Now, the interesting thing that was sort of hanging over my head was that in the first week of basic boot camp, I get a letter from my then wife, and I call it my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive future, and I'm blessed to have a very good relationship with her still. I was literally around there yesterday. I was looking after their dog for a bit, and I dropped it back. But getting back to my first week, my lovely then wife sent me this letter saying, "Hey, I'm pregnant." I'm like, happy days. But then I'm doing the math, and I'm like, he's going to be born on selection. So I am working my ass off to get to this selection, knowing that, there's going to have to be a decision made somewhere. Do you want to see your kid born or do selection? And before selection, they told me, look, we know you got a kid coming, but here's your choice. This is Special Forces selection. You can either see your kid born or you can do selection. You can't do both. And, Brad, I tell you, I had to remove myself from that situation. I said, who am I concerned about here? I'm concerned about the kid, right? So from his perspective, what does that kid need? Now, does he need me physically there at his birth, or does he need a dad with a job? And I said to my then wife, we're going to get you all the support you need. I'll fly in your sister, my mum. Okay. But for me to provide above like a minimum wage, I've got to do this, because the downside is if I didn't do that course that I've been working my absolute ass off for 9 months, I'd have to wait another 18 months before I could get on again. Okay. And that's a long time in Army speak.
Wow. So they would have made you an Army soldier at that point?
I would have
for 18 months, or would they have sent you home and said, try again?
Well, what happened to people that left the Special Forces entry path? They got treated with absolute disdain in every other unit. They called them SF rejects. Looking at the choice, it was difficult, but it was the right one. But they did let me have a phone on selection. It was one of these old Nokia, you could break glass with it if you needed to escape a vehicle.
The brick phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Not as bricky as the one that you would have had
right.
back in the day, but they let me have a Nokia phone, and I got this text from my then wife saying, "Oh, look, water's broken. It's all happening." And this was, every day's hard, but this one was particularly brutal. This one was the fire and movement day. And they crawled us through this cactus. There's just cactus scattered everywhere, right? And these things had barbs like a couple inches long, and they would go through your boot. And so at the end of every run, we'd have to get our bayonets out, which is like a long knife, and help your buddy remove the prickly pears and shit out of their self, right? But you had to be careful, because if you flicked it out, it would flick out and hit maybe another part of you or someone else, you know? so, so, and at the end of this, I mean, you're a soldier, you're training for it. You're like, okay, this is just it, right? But then you get the message, water's broken, it's all happening. The child's being born. And I remember looking up at the trees, Brad, going, man, I'm going to regret this day the rest of my life. This sucks. And then that evening, I'm laying out the Claymore lines for evening harbor, night harbor. And this officer turns up, you know, typical officer, you know, oh, he hadn't done too much sort of work in the field, so he had lots of energy. Oh, how you doing, Tim? I'm like, yeah, no worries. And he met my then wife. He says, oh, how's she going? And I'm like, nah, she's good. Got the message, the baby's coming. And then he says, oh, do you want to go see your kid born? And I immediately put my right foot back and put my right hand behind my back, and I had a clenched fist. And why I did that was because I was about to knock this guy out. Because what they do on selection is they'll say, oh, you want to get on the truck? Go towards the truck. You get to the truck drives off. Oh, you want some water? Go towards the water. They tip the water out in front of you. Okay. So all these psychological games. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to prison tonight. I'm going to knock this officer out because I'm not going to be messed with on this subject. And he could sort of sense like, what's going on? He says, no, Tim, I'm serious. Do you want to go see her? And when I'm like, this guy for real? I'm like, yeah, I want to see her. And then, you know, the good thing about the army is when an officer gets on the phone and starts swearing, things start happening really quick. So, you know, a truck came and grabbed my, you know, all my bombs and bullets. Another truck came and grabbed me. There's a picture of me with cam paint all over me, looking like I've been beaten up by my, you know, then wife's bed there for the birth.
Wow. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Where we were was in a place in Australia called Sydney.
Yeah.
And about an hour outside of Sydney is this bushland where they were running the selection.
That makes me feel happy because I'm going to tell you, when you first started telling that story, I'm like, he had to choose selection over watching his kid being born. Oh my God. My heart was just like killing me inside. And I was like, that makes me feel much better. You brought my energy back because I was feeling it for you. I'm like, not being able to see my kid being born. Oh my God. I'm so happy that you had a chance to do that. So obviously you finished up, and did you immediately get deployed, or were you hanging out? Were you doing drills and continue training for a while, or?
No. So very soon after, you know, a few people came through the scheme, surprise, surprise, Afghanistan kicks off. But because it had been so long since there's been an active deployment to a war zone, people were jumping over their mother's graves to get on this trip. So the first few trips, the guys on the in crowd got deployed. Like if you got along, and I have to be honest about this, I struggled with army culture. I really did. You know, I wasn't one of the boys that went out drinking. I had a family, and I was just I went home to look after them.
Right.
So I wasn't in the in crowd, and it didn't help that I was one of the guys that it was kind of obvious that I didn't fit in around base. Like some of the stuff I just struggled with, right? And it wasn't until we went on deployment to Afghanistan where a lot of guys came up to me afterwards and actually apologized. They said, Tim, we actually thought, you know, we believed that when people said this, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. But after we see you in action, we're sorry we believed the bullshit. And that meant so much to me to have a team around me like that.
I had a similar experience because I was the computer nerd. When I went over, I was on humanitarian missions, but still ended up with experiences, let's call it that. And it's kind of the same thing. You know, I got almost the same treatment because, hey, it's the computer nerd that knows how to wire this stuff and is there to, you know, because I was there to basically post offices, new political offices, new schools, you know, because I don't know how it's done in Australia. In America, if we blow it up, we rebuild it. Reparations. And so we've been doing that since Vietnam. You know, we basically we're responsible for rebuilding Hiroshima back up to where it is today. If we blew it up, we would build it. We would rebuild it. So my job was to come in, and then we turned it into 21st century. I would lay cable. My team would lay cable, build up computer farms, the whole bit, you know, but we'd like chopper in, take a convoy out with all the equipment, do what we needed to do, get out, leave. So I understand. I don't understand what you did, I saw it, but I wasn't a part of it. Let's put it that way. So you were much more into the S than I was. What was that experience like for you?
Deployment was everything just made sense for me.
Really?
Like I struggled in on base, right? But then when the sporting field's on, they just excel. So in the field, everything just kicked into gear for me. And I lost my fear of death. And I did it in two ways. So, and one of which strangely happened on the roof this morning. And it's so weird we're having this conversation. So freaking weird, right? So remember how I said I grew up in a very conservative Christian space, okay? And in Afghanistan, you know, I thought, well, there was only one time when Jesus was afraid, and that was in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I don't think he was afraid of the physical dramas he was about to endure. He was afraid that for the first time in all of time, he was going to be, if you believe in what the Bible said, technically speaking, Jesus was, you know, God's son, as the Bible says, and he was always connected to his Father. Okay. But when he was on that cross bearing everyone's sins, he was separated from the Father. So he wasn't scared about being on the cross. He was scared that he was going to be all alone for the first time since forever. You know, if you just put him off on the side of the road and drive off, there's no harm being done, but there's a separation there. So in that sort of paradigm of that biblical faith, I saw that Jesus' fear was related to his disconnection from the Spirit. And I thought, well, because he endured that, I will never have to. Doesn't matter if I live or die, I'm never going to be separated from the divine Spirit. I'm like, that makes sense. And so I had so much fun over there that people were saying, Tomo, you're not supposed to have so much fun. You know, because I'd literally genuinely dropped all my fear. But here's the funny thing. On the last job we had to do, it wasn't a particularly high rate job, but I discovered why people fear. We fear for the things that we could potentially lose, the things that we're trying to hang on to. So on that last job that we had, I'd made my peace with my death. When I'm like on the last job, I'm like, oh, I might survive this. I'm really looking forward to getting home, doing this, seeing that, hanging out with the kids. And that's when the fear hit me. The second there was something in my life I was wanting to hang on to, the fear hit me because that was fear of loss.
Right.
I'm like, that is so interesting. I literally, my nervous system shifted completely from fearless to frightful because I was trying to hang on to something. And if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, what is going to get me killed quicker? Being filled with fear or being clear-minded and fearless? I could create a self-fulfilling prophecy, but with my best intentions of, oh, I'm really wanting this thing to happen in my future. And I would sabotage that because I'm hanging onto it so tight, I'm not actually in the moment.
Yeah.
And to dovetail that, my faith has changed somewhat to more of an interactive, it's still biblical principle, but I've got a lot from the woo-woo space. They're really good at actually finding where in the body certain energies are stuck. To me, our power is relative to connection. How we connected to we are is how powerful we are. As humans, we accumulate blockages. And the woo-woo space has been really good at finding out exactly where in the body these things are blocked, clearing it, and then you get your vertical connection to God. We're having a good time. So probably more than an hour ago, I was on my roof and I realized, holy shit, this body is not me. This body is a radio, okay? I am the signal going through the radio. And I get my best energetic returns when I tune into my signal. And there's all sorts of energy levels the body can create, you know, courage, love is higher, you know, hate, unforgiveness, lower. The highest energy they've registered coming out of the human body is authenticness and genuineness. When you're genuinely dialed into who the hell you are, you know, and that's when you have your body tuned into that radio station and you're not hearing the static anymore. It's clear, it's crystal, it is loud, and you know exactly what it is. But there's pushback from the mainstream world because they're so used to having a crackly radio station that is probably someone else's station. so to tune into your own and to realize that, this is just a radio. I'm the signal. And the more I tune into that, which is my energetic signature, that's the thing where I get my abundance, my power, my connection, my love, my purpose, my generosity.
That is for another thing that's I think is completely profound. The relation to the radio. That makes so much sense. Well, and more to you and me than to these millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, because we know what it's like to turn the dial. We remember what it's like to have the orange freaking thing where you're just, and you get to that point where you're like, you can hear it. There's a little crackle in the background, and you're just like, you can still hear it and you can still dance to it. It's good enough. But there's nothing like hitting a signal that's so strong that you hit it, and then all of a sudden the bass comes out, the treble, and everything around you, and it's coming through those speakers, and you're just like, everything is there. That's exactly what I think is what you're saying, is that. So for me, I remember that. So I was training for my very first marathon, and I had to go out of town on business. I had to go to DC, and my whole crew, which we had 12 people, and we all ran together. We all did all our long runs together. So we would talk. So you could detach from the running by having this conversation. Well, I had to go. It was my first 18-mile run, and I started. And within 2 miles, I couldn't tell you what happened. I had no idea what was going on at that point. I got to mile 9, and if it wasn't for the fact, was it 9 or 10? Anyway, I got into that point, and if it wasn't for the fact that I started to cramp a little bit, and I got a little thirsty, my legs started to feel it, because I was so in tune what was going on, and that radio was so on the money that I totally forgot about taking in fuel, making sure that I had enough hydration. I totally forgot about it because I was just in it. I walked for a little bit. I took some hydration. I got some salt. I took a couple of fuel packets, just started to jog a little bit, got going. And I can't tell you what happened until I saw my car at the end, because it was an out and back. So I went out and came back. And when I left, like I said, within 2 miles, I couldn't tell you what happened until that 10th mile, when my body told me that, hey, you need something. And then took me another mile or so. And then I couldn't tell you what happened until I saw my car at the other end. And that is what I am taking from you, is being in that perfect signal. And that was me, right? At that time.
Well, you are so blessed to experience what I term totality. Most people only ever experience that in extreme fight or flight situations. Kids under the car, you lift the car, right? We've got incredible power here. The other way I sort of bracket this to help people understand what totality is that, if you were to look at me, how heavy do you think I am?
218.
Okay, well, if I convert that back, that's about right. So that's a measurement of mass. My body contains mass, right? You own a body, I own a body. They all look different. They all weigh different things, but they all contain mass. Our bodies contain mass. They're stuck in this moment. Now, there's something else we both own that's just as important. We both own a mind. Now, if I was to put my mind on the scales, you can't measure it because our mind doesn't contain any mass. Now, that's an obvious but important statement, because with our minds not containing mass, they're not stuck in this moment of time. So I can send my mind into the past. I can send my mind into the future. Now, our minds aren't omnipotent. They have a processing power. So I call it, say, you've got 100% of processing power. And let's say that there's something in my past I'm not happy with. My body's stuck at, 9 in the morning, but my mind will go 30 years ago and still be ruminating on something. And that'll take up a certain percentage of processing power. So let's say it takes up 30% of processing power. So what's 100 take 30? 70. So I'm down to 70% in this current moment, 9 a.m. in my body. Let's say there's something in my future that I'm concerned about. And we all have something, in our future that we can be concerned about, right? And that might be taking up another 30%. So what's 70%? Take 30%, 40%. So I'm down in this moment, without me even knowing it, down to 40%. And I'm wondering why life is so freaking hard, because life is hard when I'm at 40%. But if we get to 100%, There's not a goddamn thing we can't do. And you got to experience totality where your mind that contains no mass connected to your mass. And this is one method I show people how to live like an energetic millionaire. Not so much that you get more energy. Yes, there's things we can do with our body, but you could create a bunch more energy. But if you're still diverting 30% to the past and 30% to the future, you're still going to be in deficit here. So it's a simple case of getting back that power.
Living in the moment, stopping about
entering that massless mind in this moment. All of a sudden, life occurs very differently. And it is a hell of a world to live in when you're 100% in that moment.
Yes, no, 100%. I've experienced it more than once, and I'm always trying to get there. Some people call it flow state. Some people call it being, totality, but it's all that same feeling. And when you get there, you don't want to leave. It's interesting that, and I never thought of reducing the percentage of my mind by thinking about the past or thinking of the future. Interesting enough, the other thing that you talked about was the energy and then how our bodies are, what did you call it? I think it was a shell. You called it something else. What did you call it?
Radio?
No, just what your body is versus your mind.
And body contains mass.
But the mass versus the energy that is your mind. When you talk about, and this is my segue into your near-death experience, is the fact that our brain, or our bodies is a shell, our brain is energy, our soul, our everything that we are as people, if you detach mind from brain. So I was saying that, so that energy level. So what I was saying was the body, the mind, but we are energy, right? So when our body dies, we still have energy. Now we know from science, the fact is that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So that energy's got to go somewhere, right? And that's where Buddhists believe is reincarnation. So you actually might end up back into another cycle of life. Some feel like your soul rises to heaven or to hell, depending on, but that's where the energy is going. And that never lives or dies. It lives in infinity. So dialing in to our radio station, that perfect radio station where we have it all together, I think is the closest state of being to where you'll get when you finally leave your body and the only thing you've got left is energy. Now, I know prior to this that you and I had talked about that you had a shark incident that led into a near-death experience, which is why I was segueing into this so we can talk about it and how that felt. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story and then lead us into what happened in that event?
Yeah, okay. Well, I love spearfishing, love freediving, love the ocean, and in Australia, we have a lot of sharks. Now, the one that took me wasn't a big one. It was maybe a bit over 2 meters long, but I tell you, Brad, I've been hit plenty of times. The biggest hit I probably got was when I was jumping out of when they throw you out of the plane and you got to hit the ground in less than 1,000 foot. Like that's the hardest I've ever been hit, right? But this shark underwater, it had me by the leg. I've never felt my body get ragdolled like a dog with a little toy. It was like, my body felt like that. It was so, I'm like, this, it wasn't big. I'd hate to have a big one on me, but this one shook the hell out of me. And what it was doing, it wasn't eating me. I mean, it was trying to, but it was drowning me because it was tangling me up in my lines, and I'm going down. But I'm composed. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get rid of this thing. I pull my knife out and I'm stabbing this thing, and I'm stabbing it in the eye, and this thing ain't letting go. So if anyone tells me, hey, a shark came in and I punched it and it went away, it wasn't interested in you. Like I said, and it's actually really difficult when you're spinning around the place to get a knife underwater and stab something. The only thing I had in my favor, I had two things in my favor. One was I had a fellow commando in the water with me. And the special forces have a very special kind of personality to them. They're the kind of people that they're hard to be around. They're a little abrasive, but when shit goes down, they're the guys you want in your corner. And you're glad they're kind of a bit abrasive because they can handle stuff, right? So I had my mate Jimmy, okay? He was a kind of a hard dude to be around, but I'm like, I'm so glad, he's with me right now. Cause as I'm drowning, right, Jimmy comes down. And I got to tell you, Brad, this was the moment when I realized just how much or how potent trust is in another human. Okay, so there I am, about to die, and Jimmy's got this look in his eyes. He's got, Tim, I've got this and I've got you, brother. And I just felt this wave of relaxation and peace come through me in a completely terrible situation, this wave of peace. And I'm like, okay, you got me. I could see he had his spear gun there because he was going to take a shot on the shark. I turned my body so he could shoot this thing, takes a shot, hits the shark, But spears aren't bullets. They just poke holes in things, right? And sharks are pretty tough. So it didn't really help. It just pissed the shark off more. And now I've got another thing pulling on me. I'm tangled up in my own line, but I'm now getting tangled up in Jimmy's line, right? And the only thing I had in my favor was that I had an electrical device called a shark shield on. Now, a shark shield creates this pulse that repels sharks, but dumb old Tim here, I didn't have it turned on. It only works if you turn it on. Okay, and guess, this is the funny part, the ironic part, the on switch was right where it was biting. So it was biting, and in the corner of its mouth, okay, it was actually, the blessing in this was it was biting me exactly where the shark shield was. Okay. And this is a prototype shark shield. It was almost like, the mobile phones in the 80s. It was like a big brick that was sitting on my leg. And this shark was biting that. Okay. And the on switch was right where its mouth was, and it was biting down on it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm about to drown. So it doesn't matter if I lose a couple of fingers. So I've probably got a few goes at giving it a go to try and find this on switch. So I reach down, I reach inside its mouth. I'm feeling around inside its mouth for this on switch. I find it, I flick it, and then boom, this thing just lets go. And then I'm like, shit, I might live, I get to the surface and I'm like, oh. It was like the sweetest breath of air I've ever had. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine what that felt like. Thank God for your buddy. We have got battle buddies for a reason, right?
What I realized is, as humans, we think we need more stuff, but what we actually need, what gives us peace and power, is trust.
Yeah.
Because we've often trusted people and we've had that betrayed. And there's a bit of a saying, there's a special layer in hell for betrayers, because trust is something that is super sacred. And often when you get burnt in that space, it's hard to go there again. But so I like to sort of live a life where if someone is trustworthy, they will present, but I can't control that. But what I can control is be a person that can be trusted. And that doesn't happen without an amount of effort too. Like, I have to ask myself, how much do I need? How much physical stimulation? How much mental stimulation? How much connection to animals? And when I feel connected, then I'm integrous inside myself. When I've asked myself, what exactly do I need? And I can feel complete and I can feel abundant, then I can interact with people sincerely. To me, sincerity comes on the back of completeness. If I'm not feeling complete, I'm not sincere. I'm always trying to control the outcome to get a benefit. If I feel like I don't have enough money, I'll be trying to control the outcome with people so I get money. Unfortunately, people pick up on that, So to me, sincerity is powerful, trust is powerful, but it's on the back of completeness. And it's our job to get that completeness within ourselves. And here's the thing, when you tune into your integral radio station, when you tune into the thing that makes you you, things get really easy, really quick, because you're the one giving to you. You're not looking for anything outside of yourself. You literally become a sovereign nation. A sovereign nation can feed itself, structure itself, build itself up. It's the deception we tell ourselves of, oh, I'm dependent on something outside of me to do something for me inside, which led me to it led me to seeing that this world has an economy based on us not being sovereign. Okay, what does that look like in real life? I can't sleep. Okay. So I go to the doctor and I tell him I can't sleep. And I lost 6 years of my life to pills. They threw a pharmacy at me and I just took pills because I thought it was the right thing to do. I didn't know that, no one told me the massive cost of taking these pills, and no one told me how hard it is to get off them. Because I didn't know that breath work was something that could help me get to sleep. There was an economy based on me not knowing my own power. And so I can't get those 6 years back. But this is where, as God is my witness, I don't want anyone else to go through life and not connect to their own sovereign power.
I get it. And, no one gets it more than Americans do, just for the fact that that's the way our healthcare works. You're on a one-payer system, right? Basically, you're paying through sales tax and VAT taxes and stuff like that. So you go to the hospital, you don't pay a bill, right?
No, largely no.
So no one knows more about economy-based, in sovereign nation or in sovereign ourselves than us. We're dependent on it. So yeah, but I get that. But so you didn't know about breathwork. You lost 6 years of life. So when did you discover breathwork?
Well, I'd been dabbling in it, but I never knew its real power until I came up against something that nearly destroyed me. And we all have these moments where you can be a villain or you can be the hero. And my moment because I was aware of breathwork, I'd even run breathwork sessions, but it wasn't until I'd gotten divorced, lost house, home, regular access to kids. I'm sleeping on the couch of my parents' house. 2 a.m., I got a war zone worse than Afghanistan going off in my head. I'm not sleeping, and I am so close to doing self-harm, drugs, alcohol, suicide. Because what's the fucking point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember how I said your mind's like a garden, whatever you water grows? I was watering the weeds of stress, and they were freaking loving it. And even though I was a breathwork coach and I knew breathwork would actually bring me peace, I couldn't do it because these stress weeds had taken over the garden. These stress weeds, they grew to a certain point where eyeballs pop out of them and they become sentient. They become aware of the things that you do that feed them. They become aware of the things that you do that starve them. And they've got no interest in you becoming peaceful and powerful because they knew if I did breath work, it would kick them out. So even though I knew what I was supposed to do, it's like I couldn't. And I'm getting up, I'm about to do self-harm, right? But then I look at my left thumb, right? This is about 4 or 5 years ago. And Brad, I go, Tim, you can take one breath. Take one fucking breath. And I drove it into my chest. I'm like, whoa, this works. Take 2. And I drove 2 fingers in my chest. Okay, this is working. Take 3. And I drove 3 fingers in my chest. Get to 5. Get to 10. Finger after finger. Breath after breath. And somewhere between breath 15 and 25, those stress weeds got kicked out. And the rest of my brain was like, Tim, thank fuck you kicked them out. This is working. Keep doing this. And it was in that moment of absolute shit state that I discovered the power of breathwork. But I also discovered that it wasn't something we naturally do. It does need to be something you listen to so you can be, guided. So I started making these little guided, my own voice, making these recordings, and it would actually work. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. I'm like, yeah, this is actually working. It kind of overruled the crap that was in my head. And then I just started disseminating them out. And then I started not just going to sleep with them, but getting out of bed with them. And I started sharing around, all these people going, this is amazing. My business partner, he was an insomniac. This is a true story. Chris, my business partner, insomniac for 38 years. I prescribed him breathwork and he just thought it was normal, like a lot of people do. So unfortunately, in our world right now, Brad, everyone thinks poor sleep is normal. There's nothing you can do about it. And heaven help yourself if you tell a doctor that you can't sleep because you'll lose years of your life to pills. Okay. So I prescribed my business partner, Chris, a particular kind of breath work. I said, you do this and I'll check back in 8 days. After 8 days, I checked in. He says, Tim, over the last 8 nights, I've slept solidly for 7. The only time I got up was when the dog barked, but then I got back to sleep. And I said, Chris, how long have you been not sleeping for? He said, 38 years. So this natural remedy had an immediate effect. He goes, yes. I'm like, Chris, we owe it to the world to share this with people, to put it in a way where people can just grab it, you know? And that's where Breathwork in Bed was born, from that state of divorce where I could have easily been an alcoholic or dead right now. But in the reality, and where right now, there was a version of me that stuck his thumb into his chest and breathed, and then realized that this stuff works no matter how hard it gets.
That's an incredible story. Now, you've mentioned a lot of stuff over this episode. You've talked about your time in Special Forces. You've talked about your time with the growing up with the Aboriginals. Say that word?
Aboriginal?
Aboriginal. Or First Nations. You talked about, near-death experience. All this stuff. That is probably the most, and the connection and everything that you've talked about has really climaxed right here with you talking about being at the lowest spot of one of the lowest points in your life and connecting to something that you've been doing as an external, and then finally being able to turn it internal, and then giving it to the world. Yeah. So sleep is huge, and it's the one thing, right, that we have. It's almost an epidemic right now. A couple episodes ago, we had Bill Joy John, who's literally a MD that focuses on sleep. And if you listen to that episode, you'll be able to hear all the ups and downs of why we sleep, what happens while we sleep, and all the medical side of it. We could talk about the energy levels and what breath work can do to help you sleep without pills, without Xanax, without all of these other external things that don't belong in our body.
Yeah. Unfortunately, ignorance of your own sovereign resources does not get you out of the impact from buying a solution outside of you. Okay? Because I didn't know what my body can do. I didn't know breath work could help me sleep. I paid someone money for a solution which cost me 6 years of my life. And I don't remember a lot of that time. And I remember coming out of the Special Forces, I did have PTSD, and I'd go to all these talks and they'd talk about PTSD. And I'm like, man, I know this stuff. I live with it. How about you just give me a freaking solution? Okay. I'm like, what can I take home right now? And the commitment I make is that right now, there is no shortage of people talking about the impacts of poor sleep. Okay. In the Special Forces, we used to weaponize it because we would deliberately target our enemy's sleep. We knew nothing of the science of sleep, but we knew if we denied them sleep for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet. So there's a lot of people talking about sleep. There's a lot of hacks out there, but I wanted to be a person that could give them something immediately. Now, I would love to give some people my little party trick is I can show you how to completely relax your body in 3 breaths. Okay. But I've also noticed that I only do new habits that are easy and effortless. So that's why we made Breathwork in Bed, the app on your phone. You just tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and we take care of the rest. It just falls out of your phone because most people are busy enough. You don't want to try and remember a hack. But if you've got that little button on your phone where you just tap and press play, and it tells you to breathe in, breathe out, and then this point in time comes, you're like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. All right. So giving people, talking about it's one thing. I've always been the guy that wanted to give people immediate access to what we're talking about. That's why I thought, well, I don't like phones, but everyone's got one. And if I can put a little app on there that gives people that opportunity to connect with their breath going to sleep, connect with their breath getting out of bed, there's not a more powerful micro habit you can have. Because I'll tell you now, if someone wants to destroy you, they will destroy your sleep and you'll destroy yourself. But if someone really cares for you, they will care about your sleep. Because as your sleep improves, it's the universal lever. It's the soil from which everything grows. And this is where people get stuck. Sleep is kind of unseen. We're very visual. You've got to look a certain way, okay, and do things in conscious waking hours. But my specialty is in the unconscious and the unseen. Just like if you can improve the soil from which someone lives, they get the fruit in the lives that they want. To me, if I was to ask myself, what's the best thing I could do for somebody? And I would say, make them a sovereign person, make them see just how wonderful the resources they have in their body. And the quickest way I've found and the most accessible way is through breathwork.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That is amazing. So listen up, everybody. You've just heard it from the Breathwork in Bed guru himself. If you go to breathworkinbed.com.au, you can check out all of this stuff, including his app and testimonials. And he's got some really cool products in there that's got his logo on it, and some really soft pajamas and some t-shirts and stuff that look like they're very comfortable. The app is both on the App Store and on Google Play, so you've got no excuse not to give it a shot. Take one night, half an hour before you go to bed, shut off all your screens. This is coming just from Dr. Bill Joe John. Make sure all your screens are off. If you're going to read something, have it be a real book. I know some of you don't know what that is. Look it up. Real book, or even a magazine. You know what I mean? Turn on your app, do the program, go to sleep. See how you feel. Give it a shot for a couple of nights. See what happens. And then I'm going to tell you, you're just going to keep coming back. Keep coming back. So definitely check that out. Again, breathworkinbed.com.au. And he is also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So we will have those linked in the show notes for you, along with his direct URL, Mr. Tim Thomas. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the sovereign self, and connect with that energy. Get that radio dialed in to what you want to do, to what you were born to do. And if you don't know what that is now, you'll find it. You will find it.
Energy has an intelligence all of its own.
Exactly.
You know, once you raise your energy level, it's like the compass just switches on automatically. And yeah, just like, water, it naturally rolls down. But if you add energy to that water and it boils, it naturally, easily, and effortlessly goes up. And that's what our bodies are like. There comes a certain point where some people just get really good at flicking water up the hill. No, you've got to create an energetic state. And the only way to get there is through your unique energy signature. And no one's going to see that except you. No one's going to see the returns you're getting, because they do start small. Now, when you master it and it gets to critical mass, you can be a guy like Brad that's done so many achievements within his athletic career. But before that happened, there was just Brad with 2 cents worth of energy. And he invested that into something that was passion to him, and he got 4 cents back. No one saw it. No one knew it. But Brad just kept on investing 4 cents, 8 cents, 16, and it multiplied out till it gets this critical mass. And the mastery someone like Brad has allows you to connect with what he's connected to in far less time. And that's why you pay a coach, because it took him decades to get mastery over this powerful connection. And he will save you so much time in one conversation. And this is why you pay your money, because that's a human superpower. If one conversation with Brad can save you 10 years, then how much would you pay? So it starts unseen, but we have to see it ourselves and just pay attention. Oh, I just got a really good return. And then mastering that. Yeah.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better. And again, so like he said, hiring a coach, and he also, Tim also coaches, but that sleep it's detrimental. A good habit of sleep will change your life. So he went through 6 years of it. He's going to give it to you just by going to the Apple Store or to Google Play Store, downloading the app and giving it a shot. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain. So give that a shot, and, take what he's taken decades to learn and connect with, and find your power, basically find your power and live your authentic self. So, hey, thank you, Tim. For those of you listening or watching on YouTube, please go ahead and leave a comment and hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you always know when we're dropping a new episode. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, hey, drop us a review. And you know that I don't care if it's even a bad review. It could be a bad review because all I'm going to do is take that and evolve the podcast to make it that much better, that much more authentic. And now Spotify is actually using comments too. So drop a comment there too. That'd be great. Love to hear from you. So, and let us know how you're sleeping, after you've downloaded the app. So again, Tim, this has been amazing. And I think there's a few more conversations between you and I that we could probably
we just skimmed a rock over a very...
Yeah, pretty much. And we've mentioned a couple times a mutual acquaintance between the two of us. So you can always download or check out Amanda's Mindset or Breathwork Magic, and you can give those a shot and listen to Tim on there too. There's probably even more information that he spews on that. So on those two podcasts, give those a shot too. We'll link those in the description as well. But for Tim and myself, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.